Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel, and I am your host. And today I am so excited to be joined with Diane Taylor. Now, Diane is the founder of Below Leadership. She's a leadership coach, an HR strategist, and an author. And she's super passionate about helping people achieve results by aligning personal and professional lives, which I think in this day and age we all need. The whole burnout and trying to find balance and trying to find what's best for us. She is going to talk to us all about that. We're going to be discussing, designing a fulfilling life, leading authentically, and achieving personal and organizational growth. So thank you so much for being here, Diane. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm really excited to be here with you today, Rachel, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. I know that you were a corporate girly for, about 20 years in
Yeah.
HR and then kind of pivoted into doing your own thing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think I was always destined to be an entrepreneur and really have an opportunity to do what I love the most. And that's to, ignite the fullest potential in human beings. And so my 20-year corporate career in human resources gave me a lot of insight into that and was the natural lead to, start my own business when I was restructured out of my last corporate position. So I worked in many different industries over my 20-year corporate career. I did a lot of things wrong, trying to climb the
Well, we've
corporate
all been there,
ladder.
yeah.
And yeah, I did. I was successful, but I now step back and say, I really burnt myself out to get there. And I really wasn't my whole authentic, beautiful self to do what I had to do. So, now I help people that are mostly in the corporate space, hopefully get there with more ease and grace.
Yeah. And so you developed this entire glow philosophy about believing in integrating your wellness and your values and your leadership for this holistic success. Can you talk about that? Because it's something that I feel like everybody needs today. We're all in our wellness era. We're trying to bring it in.
Yeah,
We're working on the burnout. We're working on, work-life balance, if that really is even a
right.
thing. So
Yeah,
talk about that for me.
yeah, for sure. So, where it sort of stems from is in my work, I have the honor and privilege of being at the table with senior leaders when they're making promotional decisions. And there's a lot of myths about that people believe why I'm not getting promoted. They think, oh, there's a glass ceiling. I need to get that extra advanced degree. I don't come from generational wealth. I'll never get there. If I work harder or longer hours than anyone else, they're going to pick me because they're going to see I'm so committed. And when we're really at the table deciding who's going to get promoted, it's really what holds people back isn't those things. What's holding people back is their ability to influence other people or their ability to build a team to get results. And what's underneath that is a lack of wellness or wholeness that typically stems from wounds that we've had at some point in our life, whether in our formative years or throughout life, things happen to us. And that affects the way we show up and the way we respond in situations that isn't as necessarily lovely to create those things of influence and positivity, team building, right? So we
I mean,
come
yeah,
across strange. Yeah.
we come across, I also feel like stressed.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're just,
And
you have to do all the things. You have to, click all the boxes and get to all the
yeah.
places.
Yeah. And I used to do that. And I used to think, well, if I'm the busiest and, I see people thinking, well, look, I'm working so hard and I'm just so stressed out. Well, do you think they're going to promote you to give you more responsibility if you can't really be peaceful and at calm with what you're doing now, you're not ready, obviously. But
I feel
there's a
like
gap
being,
in understanding that.
yeah. And I feel like being busy, especially for women, it's like we wear it like a badge of honor.
Exactly.
Like, you know, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so
Right.
busy. Like I'm doing all
Oh,
the
no,
things. I mean,
no, I'm more busy than
I'm
you.
busy. And like we wear it like this huge badge. I mean, and I am
Yeah,
1,000% in like I do this 24/7. I'm like I cannot say no to anything. I'm like, I'm gonna start a podcast while getting my MBA, while working a full-time job, while also being on, volunteering and being like and being a friend and trying to date and just
right.
doing it all. Just
Exactly.
because that is what I'm like programmed to do. And trying
Right.
to take the break is hard.
Well, and the thing is, where there's the lack is so as women, we really thrive doing multiple things and serving in different ways. And, that's one way we can definitely create balance by having those different things in our lives. However, when we're scheduling all our things and I want to, volunteer because that lights me up, and I want to
Mhm.
take my MBA because I love learning and for where I'm going, it's really going to help me. Those are great. But on that list of the things we're doing, we need to do us. It needs to be a piece of that, not us doing all of those things. But okay, so when am I doing me? Because I need to take care of me so that I can be vital and lit up and have this energy to do all these things I want to do with, more
Yeah.
energy and peace. And when we do that, when we take care of ourselves, and when we focus on our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well being, we can do those things with more ease. It doesn't feel as um, chaotic.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's kind of like a way that we should be reflecting on how we do this? If you're like, this is just too much, you should take a step back and be like, okay, we're going to block out 20 minutes a day. Or what are some tips that you think are best for when you have just like, even just like one day that's just jam-packed? We were just talking before we got on about the holidays and the Christmas parties and like the social engagements and just being
Right.
on all the time.
Yeah. So typically, what we do is we're in this cycle of go, 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 burnout, recover, go, 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 burnout, recover. That is not a good approach.
Yeah.
Each time the burnout gets more intense, the recovery takes longer. And we typically don't have time to, fly off to Bali for a week to,
Right. For a week, it to
find
just,
ourselves. So it, it it's like I use the analogy of going to the gym. If you go to the gym once a quarter, you're not going to get the results that you hope to see. And I really wish that was the case because I don't love going to the gym.
right.
So it's the same with our wellness. We need to have more regular, proactive things that we do. For myself, that's daily meditation, and no matter what, I don't miss it. So if I have to be, somewhere at 6 o'clock, I'm going to get up at 4:30 to do that because that is my space to center, and then I can move forward. The things we eat and consume, like in our physical bodies, how we move our bodies, taking care of our physical, taking care of our minds. How do we create ease in our minds? Right now, we're in a mental health crisis. There's a lot of anxiety. People are suffering from a lot of anxiety. So, how do we calm the mind? What practices do we use to calm the mind? Right. So, for me, again, that meditation really helps me with the mind. Practicing gratitude before bed, writing down things in a journal before you go to bed so they're out of your mind so you're not, losing the sleep. Sleep is critical. And then in the emotional, what are you doing to take care of your emotional state? As women, we really have our communities, and that is one of our biggest supports. So, within our schedule, when are we having those coffee dates? Or, do we want to have therapy? And you can have, meet
Yeah.
your counselor on Zoom or Teams these days. So, and then our spiritual selves. And, whether you have a religious practice or not, when we think about spirituality, it's more about belief. What do we believe
Yeah.
in? And it's even to the point of, in 3 years from now, I want my career to look like this. That's a vision. That's a forward focus. It's not happened yet. That's the spiritual realm. So how do we take care of ourselves in that area? So, in my book, the last quarter or the last third of my book is really steps to walk through and exercises to do to create space and then do some intentional work that really creates an ease and shows people the way.
I mean, I just think that's, on an individual level, we all have to be doing it. And especially when you're talking about the anxiety and having that, like I have high functioning anxiety. I've had it, I think, my entire life, but
Yeah,
like medicated for that. And it's done wonders to just kind of like
right.
ease things. It would be like and everybody gets a different. Mine felt like an elephant sitting on my chest when I would get
Yeah,
anxious and then I would like itch. It was a whole pretty picture. But
right.
having like the therapy and having those outlets, I think are really important. And it's still so stressful in the corporate set. How do you feel like leaders or managers can help ease this
Yeah,
for employees with just given everybody's been going through layoffs, like the economy's not been great. Like there's a lot of stressors out
yeah,
there as it is. And then to be stressed to just have your job.
right. So traditionally, the way that, corporations have looked at wellness is, oh, we have this wellness program, and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on
Mhm.
employee wellness programs. And it's like, great, that works if you want a gym membership, but it's mostly money out the window
Yeah.
because again, it's not for the individual. And each one of us, we all have a unique little fingerprint. Well, we all need to have a unique wellness plan. So a corporate down, oh yeah, we have this program, and down program, typically the way those are designed is very poor. The other thing is they're not creating balance. When they say wellness plan, they're mostly thinking physical. And, in the last couple years, they're thinking, more mental health and therapy. But again, they're not really in that emotional, spiritual realm. So, um, what I prefer people to do, like what the employer's position is to, provide resources and to, that might show people the way to develop their own unique individual wellness plans. And in my leadership development programs, I've always been really, it's been my sort of my differentiator to include wellness in my leadership
Mhm.
programs because I do believe they go hand in hand. um and it isn't do this, do this. It's okay, what do you want to do in this area, and here's a bunch of ideas. And then each individual creates their own wellness plan while learning about, how do you overcome stress, and those types of things are included. But when we empower the individual to develop their own plan instead of corporate top down, here's your wellness plan and here's what it looks like, that's where we get the meaningful uptake. The other thing, as a leader, you need to understand that you don't run your business with robots, you run your business with humans. And every human is suffering on some level.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
It's the empathy towards others too,
Exactly.
and like
Exactly.
understanding where people are coming from. Do you
Yeah.
feel like corporations or like just leaders within these corporations, I feel like they should have to take these kind of courses. They should have to take something on empathy because like a lot of large corporations, when I became a manager, they were just like, hey, here's 11 people,
Yeah.
go. And I'm like, go what? Go what? Like,
Right.
what do I do with them now? I'm just supposed to like mentor these people, help them grow. Like, I need mentoring,
Yeah,
help grow. Like, what do I do now? And
exactly.
there's not really, there's leadership courses out there, and I think they're getting more prominent, but it's not something that's innately just taught. It's just a
No,
step in that career ladder where they're like, and now you shall manage. And you're like, I shall, but how?
exactly. It is very common for people to be placed into leadership positions with no training or understanding. And my students always say to me, like, wow, your program was so different than even like, I've taken different leadership courses over the years, and this one was so different because, first of all, it put me as a topic. I learned about myself.
Yeah.
Because if we don't really have self-awareness, how are we supposed to be aware of others, right? So that is first piece. And then it's like, oh, okay. I learned, how diverse humans are and how unique they are. And that helped me approach each one of my employees from a different perspective, to get the best out of them, to work together with them, right? Because if that's really where, if we think about what is really the true definition of leadership, it's the ability to influence others to get to where you want to go. So, effective business leaders are meeting their business objectives and increasing revenue for companies. That's, we're in
Yeah.
business, we got to make money, but you're doing it with a team of humans. So if you don't understand humans and how diverse they are and how they're motivated and how to get the best out of them, your job's going to be very hard. And you might get short-term success with the old, 1980s leadership styles of, managed by fear and, but that is not sustainable.
And I mean, I think the sustainability is where the companies would want to really hold on to. I never can really understand when you have employees and they've been there for 10 years and like you don't have to invest the money into training them or anything like that, but you want to bring in somebody maybe younger with less experience because you can pay them less. And like there's like the attrition rate of it all. And I mean, that's also terrifying once you reach that like middle manager, not quite a VP, not quite a
Yeah,
VP leading the company, but like you've done too much to be like at the bottom tier.
right.
And I know you've talked about it in your book about the neuroscience in leadership and how like that understands the human behavior. Do you feel like leaders in the company and leaders that are managers should have to be able to understand this before becoming a leader?
I think if there is anybody that's on a path towards leadership within a company should be in some kind of development plan that includes, leadership courses to develop their, not just learning the P&L and, what their targets are, what their 5-year business plan is, because, their 5-year business plan is going to take humans to do it. So if they want to be effective, I think they know that doing that, investing in their people, developing their whole leadership capabilities is going to get them to where they want to go. It's the cost of doing business,
Yeah.
right? The employee experience matters. And even from we're in a war on talent, we're in a global war
Yeah.
on talent. And I know it doesn't feel like that today as we talk, because the reality is a lot of people are being laid off, and I know it's very difficult right now. But the truth is it's going to be okay. We're going to come back. There is less people for the jobs that we have. And in order to run businesses successfully and reach those business objectives, the easiest way to do that is to have a team of your best and brightest and most well-trained people from the top down. And without that leadership level being, um, excellent in terms of all areas of leading, it's going to be harder. You're not going to get there. So, and you're not going to retain the people, and then you're going to spend a lot of money recruiting and
Mhm.
training, and maybe not attract people. Word on the street's going to be that, well, I worked there and it wasn't that great, and my boss was a jerk, because people join companies but they leave supervisors.
Oh, 1,000%.
So yeah.
Because
So
the company half the time, like you're like the benefits are too good, or this is what it is. So unless you're getting like horrible behavior on an individual level, like you can power through anything.
right, exactly,
Do you
exactly.
feel, I know in your book you talk about an approach for helping individuals identify what they truly want in life and leadership. Can you talk about that approach and how you do that?
Yeah, it's more of a reflective process on, one of the exercises would be to write your own eulogy, right? So
Okay.
at the end of your life, let's say you're like, watching over and it's your celebration of life and your friends are going up there and talking about you. What do you want them to be saying? Is it, oh, she killed herself for the company. She works 60 hours a week and she got pretty good results, but she never saw her friends and her kids resent her for is that
Yeah,
what
for
you
working all the time.
want? Right? Is that what you want your legacy to be? Typically, no. When we go there, we want to be viewed as an amazing mom, a you know, a, someone that helped the people in our workplace or, brought out the best in the people in our workplace, that we were a good daughter, we served our communities, that's how we want. So then we look at, okay, with this, how we want to be remembered or what our legacy is, are the things I'm doing right now, if I look at my schedule right now, is that aligned with where I'm going? Typically, there's a gap. So then how do we move forward to close that gap?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and the gap is scary. Like it's scary to even think that there might be
Right.
this unknown out
Right.
there and like how you deal with that.
Yeah.
When you have in your program, two programs, Thrive and Inspire programs that are designed really specifically for women to advance and lead with confidence. And I feel like men, men get a lot of, they just have confidence naturally, most of them, like not all of them, but most of them. But women, it's so much harder, and imposter syndrome really sits so deep with us. Can you tell me about these programs and like why you developed them?
Yeah. First of all, I will say that men also experience imposter syndrome. They are oppressed in different realms.
Yeah.
They've been taught to suck it up and be a man. And, the man culture doesn't allow them to share that I'm feeling imposter syndrome, right? So
Yeah.
they just don't express it. So, they're doing the fake it till you make it, and it works in most situations. Um, Sorry, ask me the question again.
Oh no, you're totally fine.
Totally forgot where
So
you're going on
you're
that.
totally fine. We can edit this portion out.
Okay.
Um, in your leadership program, you have two specific
Oh,
programs,
great.
Thrive and Inspire, that are focused on women and the advancement of women in
Okay.
leadership. Can you tell me a little bit about those programs and why you came up with
Sure.
those specifically?
Yeah. So women have unique experiences in the workforce, right? We um because, traditionally, the workforce started out with mostly men and, women, we stayed at home and, as things came along and we started to enter the workforce and add value, we sort of a lot of us adapted to more what I call yin and yang energy, right? So as women we have this beautiful divine feminine energy, but a lot of us hid that in the workplace, myself included, to show up as more yang, male based energies, because we were looking, when we look to the top and say I want to get there, who's our model? It's
Men.
typically a man. So how are we going to get there? I'm going to emulate their behavior. So for a lot of my career, I showed up very, and it's still a little bit there. I
Yeah.
do bring in more of the feminine and create that balance. But so as women, when we learn that when we create the balance and we really bring our feminine energy to the table and balance with that masculine, there's another thing that creates a lack of balance for women. We're trying to show up as these strong, results orientated, get shit done in our workplaces so that we can advance, but it is at a cost to us. So in my women's program, I teach about, the archetypes that we show up as and how do we create the balance and how do we intentionally get ahead. And when we bring the feminine and combine that with the results oriented, that's where we really start to like light up everything we touch. And everyone around us starts to like invite us forward and really create value in our collaborations.
Do you feel like going with more of the feminine energy, you can kind of fall into that pitfall of like the likability trap when it comes to being a woman, when you're like trying to balance like having the male energy, but also having your feminine energy?
I I I think the thing is to have the balance, right? So um you don't want to be, and typically women will fall one way or the other. They'll be too yang, which was my approach in the corporate world. I went really, and it worked.
Yeah, you went
It
in on it.
left me completely burnt out, and I was pushing and forcing and proving that I was worthy. It was hard. And, and now that I've brought my more feminine energy to create this balance, I just get results with ease. And my clients, a lot of the men that I work with, like senior leaders, CEOs, they appreciate um, a softer approach, or like we talked about empathy.
Mhm.
Empathy is a yin-based energy, right? And Forbes magazine says that it's the most important leadership skill that we have today. So that's something that is typically more natural for women, but we might hide if we, to try to get ahead. So if we bring forward both and show up with both, it doesn't mean we want to go to the opposite direction and start being a people pleaser. That's not an effective way to do things either. But it means that you know, we can deliver hard messages without a charge,
With
right?
having the empathy, with having that
Exactly. Or just coming from a softer, we can
approach.
say
Yeah.
the same thing with a different tone. Like a lot of times we go in, we're trying, this was I know myself and several of my girlfriends experience this. We're trying to get stuff done. So we go in with this, we drop the, go in with the message in a softer tone, and you're going to get a result because you're not going into a battle. There's no reason we need to go into a battle. We need to go into a collaboration to
Do you feel like
create a
that's
win.
specific for women though? Like I feel like some very successful women or, influential women that I've worked for, I would have men be like, she yelled at me. Like, did she yell or did she speak to you firmly with confidence? And then they would stare and I'm like, there's a difference. Like she's not yelling is yelling. She didn't
To be
yell.
honest,
Yeah.
I think as women, that's a message that may not be serving us.
Okay.
I think I worked with a lot of women that believe that, but they're not showing up well. The way they're not showing up, and it isn't with just a direct message. There's some there, right? And it's because if we don't feel comfortable or confident or worthy, the translation of that message is not going to come across right. So I don't want us to hide behind, well, I, I it's because I'm a woman that they're not hearing me and they think I'm being, too aggressive.
Mhm.
It's okay, how do we, instead of blaming them and this is a problem, what can I change now for me to create influence, to get to where I want to be? Because if we give the power outside of ourselves, or we come up with another myth of why we're not getting ahead, we're not helping ourselves. So when we have to give these direct messages, how can we create the right tone or the right, you know?
No, and I see your
So
point there. I do,
yeah,
because I mean, we would love for it to be equal. And I would love for it to be like I can speak just as the men do, but in reality, that's not what's going to get you further along, and it's not going to get you to the place that you want to be. And then you either fall into the likability trap or you fall into the non-likability trap, which is even harder to get out of.
yeah. And I think it's important to, you know, with my clients will say, I'm tough with them and
Mhm.
I challenge them. I didn't start out that way with them. In the beginning, I think it's important to be softer, to develop more of a relationship and a point of trust. And then you can just speak how you speak, and it doesn't come across as, oh, they're this or they're that. It once you create it, like any relationship, you have to gauge and create, so it's not really, being a people pleaser. It's strategically developing trust to get to a point where you can speak factual.
And do you have any practical tips for women on how to work on this and what to do like in their free time to try to learn how to do this?
The most valuable thing you can do is work on your own self-worth. And how do we work on our own self-worth? We get clear out those, we heal those wounds that, you know, in my book, I talk about my story in chapter 1. Chapter 2 is all the impacts of that wound that it created, how I show up, how I'm the, control freak,
Yeah.
and all these different negative behaviors are because of an experience that I had in my early childhood. Most of us have the same. When we understand that, okay, I'm in control of my story, I can heal these, let these things go. I am worthy. I am worthy right now. It doesn't matter what my title is. I'm adding value. We relax into that and we really truly love and respect ourselves and own our own worth. It's a total game changer.
I mean, and
Everything
so
isn't
much
a
easier
battle.
said than done. Like
It
it's
is.
hard. It's hard.
It is very difficult because we've never been taught how, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the book, is because, I'm 54 years old. No one taught me this. I kind of had to figure it out as I went along. I climbed the corporate ladder the hard way, exhausted myself, got burnt out. Um, and then, I've also been working on healing myself and stepping into that. But it's sort of been like, oh, what, go here, and oh, now this is happening. Oh, I need help, so go here, as opposed to someone, if someone had said to me in my early career, do this step by step. So that's what I've tried to do to help, all people, um, go through a process and do some intentional steps and learn some key things so that they can get there faster.
No. And I mean that makes so much sense. And it's doable. It's just hard.
It is.
And like you have to make that choice for yourself that this is like where the direction you want to take and where you want to be.
Yeah. And life is hard. This is
Yeah.
like, life is hard. That's how we grow. That's how we
Yeah.
learn, is through our challenges. So, but, there's a lot of stuff out there about, self-love, and it's not going to happen in a bubble bath. It's going to be some intentional work on yourself. And it's, rather than saying this is going to be hard, what if we say this is going to be outstanding because I'm going to get better and I'm going to create more abundance and success and joy in my life. This is worth it. Right? So,
And
yeah,
it has to, yeah. And it is worth it. It has to be
it
worth it.
is. It's
And you just have to
totally
put
worth
that.
it.
It's also putting yourself first.
Exactly.
And that's a
Exactly.
big thing.
It
I
is.
think
Yeah.
this has been so interesting. It's been enlightening for me, who's type A and moving all around and doing all the
I
things
get
and
that.
like learning, yeah, and getting to get those kind of points. But I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
If you could give just one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Um, I think it would be, you are worthy. You are perfect. You were divinely created. You have gifts that no one else has to share with this world, and no one can take that away from you.
That's so beautiful. And I mean, it's a message that it can hit people today too. It's good advice to tell 16-year-old you and good advice to tell 54-year-old you. Like you're here for a
Exactly.
reason.
That's
I
right.
love that. So tell
Good.
the listeners where they can find you, all about the book, your socials, all of that. So
Sure.
plug yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to connect with you. You can find me at glowleadership.com for my leadership development programs, or if you need a speaker for an event. My book, Elevate Potential, A Conscious Approach to Success, can be found on Amazon. And you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Glow Leadership, or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm at all of those places, and I'd love to continue this journey with each and every one of you and help you shine brighter.
That's awesome. So make sure to check out Diane. She has a huge amount of knowledge, and I think it's going to be able to help so many people out there. And that's really what the most important part is.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been my pleasure.